There's a real update in the Tate brothers case that actually matters, and it's not the stuff their lawyer has been saying in interviews. It's what Secretary of State Marco Rubio just confirmed directly, and it changes the picture on where this whole extradition fight is actually heading. Quick recap for anyone just catching up. Andrew and Tristan Tate were arrested in Miami on July 18, 2026, after British prosecutors brought a wave of new charges against them, bringing the combined total to 59 counts between the two brothers, including rape, human trafficking, assault, and charges involving indecent images of a child.
Things don't work out with bail or with extradition. The boys can't be extradited without the Secretary of State signing off on that. The Secretary of State is, of course, Marco Rubio. Look, Marco Rubio has a son who plays football in college in Florida right now. One allegation against his son and his son's life is...
They appeared in federal court in Miami shackled and handcuffed, with their attorney Joseph McBride vowing to fight extradition and calling the charges politically motivated. Both brothers remain in federal custody as the extradition process continues. Here's the actual news, though. Marco Rubio, who as Secretary of State has the final say on any extradition request under this treaty, has now said publicly that the Trump administration does not plan to intervene in the process. A senior State Department official told Axios directly that the U.S. has an extradition treaty with the UK, and the administration intends to honor it in this case. That's a pretty clear signal. And according to people who know Rubio's thinking, he's not personally inclined to help the Tates at all. One source close to him reportedly said flatly, "Marco thinks these guys are scum." Rubio has a documented record as a senator fighting for stronger human trafficking laws and protections for victims, so this isn't coming out of nowhere given his background. Before we get further into this, if you're finding this breakdown useful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because this case has a lot of moving parts, and I'm going to keep tracking the actual confirmed developments as they come. Now, why does this matter so much? Because the Tate brothers and their legal team have spent a lot of time.
The whole internet has seen the video that I made. It's going viral across the whole internet right now. How did that come about? Not from me. That came about from the Lord. The same way I am now standing here with Andrew Tate's lawyer. How I want to ask you, brother, is are you guys fighting the most evil and most powerful people in the world right now?
There is no question about it. This is a fight. This is the eternal fight of good versus evil. This is the oldest fight in the book, the oldest fight in all of creative history. It is the synagogue of Satan. It is the church of evil. It is the secular, humanistic, anti-God church that tells you that a man can't be a man, a woman can't be a woman, people shouldn't get married, and you should sacrifice your babies to God knows what.
Yeah.
This is evil, hardcore, bona fide evil that we're fighting against. And Andrew and Tristan Tate are two generals in that war.
Yes. And you have here a Christian and a Muslim standing together in unity, just like the brothers. Stop the division, the people. Now you have to take action. This is the
publicly suggesting this whole case is a political operation, and part of that framing has leaned on the idea that their past political connections might help them. Andrew and Tristan were part of the online manosphere coalition that supported Trump's re-election campaign. And there have been reports of connections between the Tates and people in Trump's orbit, including reported communication between Andrew Tate and Barron Trump, according to New York Times reporting from December 2025. The brothers also have documented connections to people who've held positions in the administration, including at least one figure who previously worked as one of Andrew Tate's own lawyers before joining a White House liaison role at the Department of Justice. But officially, the Trump administration has kept its distance, and multiple outlets have described the administration calling those connection stories fake news. When the Tate brothers were first arrested back in Romania in 2022, Donald Trump Jr. publicly called that prosecution absolute insanity on social media, which fed into the perception that the family had genuine sympathy in Trump's inner circle. Now with Rubio...
Every time somebody compares them to Epstein, what they're doing is they're saying these guys are so bad that they deserve to be put in an orange jumpsuit and hung in their prison cells. We would never extradite somebody to North Korea knowing that they were going to be executed, and we shouldn't extradite Andrew and Tristan Tate to the United Kingdom knowing that they'll be executed as well, because make no mistake about it, they want to lock them up in some horrible prison and make sure that they get murdered. That is fundamentally evil and wrong.
Directly on record saying the administration isn't going to act to block this extradition, that public distancing looks a lot more concrete than just a talking point or a hedge. Let's talk about where they're actually being held, because this part has been getting a lot of attention too. Their attorney has described the conditions as extremely difficult: solitary confinement, limited time out of their cell, and physical conditions that don't fit two men over 6 feet tall, with Andrew standing 6'13" and Tristan at 6'5". McBride has publicly said, when you put innocent men, or any man, in solitary confinement at a certain period of time, they begin to deteriorate, they begin to decompensate, they begin to break down, and it's never ever good. That's a direct quote from their own legal team about the psychological toll of extended isolation, and it lines up with broader, well-documented research on the mental health effects of long-term solitary confinement generally, regardless of who the person in that cell happens to be. According to their lawyer, the brothers have been given very limited time outside their cells since being taken into custody, and he's described the facility conditions, including access to communication with the outside world, as severely restricted. That's their legal team's characterization, and it's consistent across multiple interviews he's given since the arrest. At the same time, it's worth noting that despite it being illegal to use cell phones in jail, social media posts have continued appearing that are attributed to Andrew Tate directly describing conditions as worst possible, which raises questions about how those messages are actually getting out, since inmates in federal custody facing extradition typically don't have direct phone or social media access. Their legal team has acknowledged being in frequent contact with them and has said they're helping get messages out without fully clarifying the exact mechanism. Drop your thoughts in the comments on this one, because there's a legitimate question.
So freely, why have I been to 25 countries this year? Because when I land in Hong Kong and the British government call the authorities and say, we need Andrew Tate, we have a warrant, the authorities say, well, what's the warrant for? And who's it against? And the British state says, we don't want to tell you who the victims are. The victims don't exist. So no country will extradite me. So I'm traveling the world completely free. No country respects England anymore. Nobody's sending me to them. I'm living as a free man. They keep putting on the BBC that they want to get hold of me. And I'm saying, tell me who my accuser is and I'll come talk to you. And they're like, no.
Buried in all of this about how solitary confinement policy should work for high-profile defendants facing serious but still unproven charges, separate from whatever you think about the underlying case itself. Now, here's something that's been noticeable this time around. Compared to previous arrests, the public support has visibly shrunk. When the Tate brothers were first arrested back in Romania in 2022, there was a much bigger, louder reaction online, including organized support and public statements from allies. This time, reporting has described a much smaller physical presence outside the courthouse, and some coverage even noted a single supporter with a sign standing outside the jail, compared to the...
They said it was a laughing matter. Now here we are in 2026, 12 years later, equidistant from 2002 as to 2014. And here we are, and Donald Trump is the president.
Larger demonstrations of previous years, whether that's from the crypto controversies that have followed Andrew Tate, general fatigue with the ongoing legal saga, or people simply wanting to see the actual trial play out, the visible groundswell of support looks different than it did a few years ago. What's next procedurally is actually pretty simple to track, even if the politics around it aren't. The extradition process requires a U.S. judge to determine whether the requirements of the U.S.-UK extradition treaty have been met. That's a legal and procedural question, not a determination of guilt or innocence. The treaty itself has been in effect since 2007, and the State Department has approved nearly every British extradition request that's come through it historically. If the court determines those treaty requirements are satisfied, the final administrative decision then goes to Rubio's desk, and based on what he's already said publicly, there's no indication he intends to stand in the way. It's also worth remembering, this isn't the first time the Tate brothers have faced extradition-adjacent legal questions. In Romania, a court previously ruled in December that the original human trafficking case against them couldn't proceed to trial due to what was described as significant procedural flaws in the prosecution's approach.
The American prison system is one of the worst prison systems in the world. It's very, very bad. They're drinking shower water in a 5x7 cell. If that, they don't have a chair, right? So if Andrew wants to sit down, they have. You've been to a city, whether it's New York, Dallas, Miami. In front of the buildings, they have sort of these black metal blocks that keep people from driving bikes and vehicles in. They have like a concrete stub. You can sit on that if you want. Obviously, who the hell wants to sit on that? Yep. Andrew 6'3", Tristan 6'5", respectively. and the beds aren't big enough. I'm 6'1", the beds aren't big enough for me. They're certainly not big enough for you. So Tristan's got to sleep like sitting up half the time.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's horrible. They don't have the ability to turn the lights on and off. There's not proper ventilation. They've been out a total of 3 days since they've been in. So they've been out 3 days, and they've been given 1 hour each day. So that's a total of 3 hours over the course of 11 days. That's inhumane. It's disgusting.
Though that case was sent back to officials for further review, rather than being dismissed outright. That history is part of why their legal team has been so aggressive in challenging the process itself, rather than only the underlying allegations. Both brothers have waived their attendance for at least one of the more recent hearings, and additional hearings are scheduled as this moves forward. Bail is historically rare in these kinds of international extradition cases, and there's been no indication that's going to change here given the flight risk factors involved, including their financial resources and history of international travel. If this actually helped you understand what's confirmed versus what's just courtroom rhetoric or social media noise, smash that like button, because breaking down cases like this with the actual sourcing takes real time, and I'd rather get it right than get it fast. At the end of the day, this case is going to be decided by the actual legal process, a judge reviewing whether treaty requirements are met, and then Rubio making the final call, which he's already signaled he's not going to block. Whatever you believe about the underlying allegations, that's the mechanism that's actually going to determine what happens next, not press conferences, lawyer interviews, or social media posts attributed to the brothers themselves. I'll keep tracking the confirmed hearing dates and any actual rulings as they come out, and I'll separate what's genuinely new information from what's just repeated legal team messaging designed to shape public opinion while the case is still pending. Peace.